Hello learners, how are you all? I think all of you are very well and safe by the grace of the Almighty. It's Muhammad SalaUddin, lecturer, Department of English, Milestone College, welcoming you to my today's lecture on cloze test without clues. It is actually one of the questions of your English first paper, and in the SSC examination you will have to answer this question as question number 3. Dear learners, before going to the details, let's have a look on the question. For the question, a scene passage from your English for Today book is given and another passage with 5 gaps which is actually reproduced on the scene passage is given. You have to answer the reproduced passage. You will have to fill up the gaps, the 5 gaps of the reproduced passage according to the information of the scene passage. Dear learners, now let's focus on how to answer the question. Dear learners, to answer this question, you will have to comprehend the scene passage at first. Then you have to go through the reproduced passage again and again accordingly so that you can get the meaning of the passage and the structure of the sentences of the passage very well. Then you have to choose a word for the passage, to fill each of the gaps according to the information of the scene passage and according to the structure of the reproduced passage. Dear learners, to get good marks in this question, you must have at first a good command on vocabulary. Then you must have a good knowledge about persuasive speech, and finally you must have knowledge about grammatical rules or some very important rules of cloze test without clues. You can see 2 very important rules of cloze test without clues. The first one you can see on the board: noun after articles, adjectives, possessives or prepositions. It means if the gap comes after any articles, adjectives, possessives or prepositions, then the word in the gap is usually a noun word. For example, you can see in the first example, the nation pays tribute to the martyrs. Here the word nation is a noun because the gap comes after an article, and that is the. In the second example, you can see we remember their heroic struggle. Here the underlined word struggle is a noun because the gap comes after the word heroic, which is an adjective, and after the word there, which is a possessive. Then rule number 2, noun pronoun in the place of subject or object. It means if the gap is the place of the subject of a sentence or object of the sentence or object of a verb or preposition, then the word must be a noun word or pronoun word. For example, you can see honesty is the best policy. Here honesty is a noun word because the place is the place of a subject. That's why the word is in the form of a noun. Then rule number 3, you can see adjective before noun or after be verb. It means if the gap comes before a noun or after a be verb, then the word in the gap will be usually an adjective. For example, you can see educational institutions are closed now. Here the word educational is an adjective because the gap comes before the noun institution. Then the second example, he is honest. Here the word honest is an adjective because this gap comes after a be verb that is. Have you got this rule? I think you have got the rule. Then rule number 4, verb according to the rules of right forms of verb. It means if the gap the place of a verb, then you have to apply the rules of right forms of verb to write the verb in the correct form. Here in the example you can see the whole nation celebrates the day to show respect to the martyrs. Here you can see the use of two verbs. Number 1, celebrates, and number 2, show. The verb celebrates is a finite verb and it is in the present indefinite tense form, and it has S form because the subject is third person singular number, and the verb show is in the base form because it comes after 2. Here we see the two verbs are used here according to the rules of right forms of verb. Have you got, my dear students? I think you have got it clearly. Learners, now we are going to comprehend the passage, the scene passage, on which our passage with 5 gaps is reproduced, and the scene passage is taken from your English for Today book, Unit 3, Lesson 5B. Let's start to comprehend the passage. 26 March, our Independence Day. It is the biggest state festival. The day is celebrated every year in the country with great enthusiasm and fervor. It is a national holiday. All offices, educational institutions, shops, factories remain closed on this day. Here in these 3 lines, it is said that 26 March is our Independence Day, and it is one of the national day of our country. It is also the biggest festival for us. So we celebrate this day with great emotion, passion and enthusiasm. And as it is a state festival or national day, every government or non-government offices, educational institution, shop, factory remain closed on this day. Then the day begins with 31 gun shoots. Early in the morning, the President and the Prime Minister, on behalf of the nation, place floral wreaths at the National Mausoleum at Savannah. Then other leaders, political parties, diplomats, social and cultural organizations, educational institutions and freedom fighters pay homage to the martyrs. In these 4 lines, it is said that this day begins with 31 gun shoots to show respect to the martyrs, and at the very early in the morning, the President and the Prime Minister of our country go to the National Mausoleum at Savannah to place floral wreaths to show respect to them on behalf of the all people of the country. Then other leaders, political parties, diplomats, social and cultural organizations, education institutions and freedom fighters also go there and pay tribute to the martyrs. Then in the last two lines, it is said that people from all walks of life also go there in rallies and procession. There are many cultural programs throughout the day highlighting the heroic struggle and sacrifice in 1971. In these two sentences, we see that it is said that people from all classes, irrespective of their ages, genders, and other things, they go there and show their tribute to the martyrs. And people of the country enjoys different cultural programs on this day where the heroic struggle and sacrifice in 1971 is highlighted. So dear students, now let's move to the practice of a board question, and that is Chattogram Board 2019. Dear learners, now let's practice a board question, and that is Chattogram Board 2019. Here you see a small paragraph with gaps, which is basically reproduced on the basis of a passage from your EFT book or English for Today book, Unit 3, Lesson 5. To fill up the gaps, we have to at first go through the passage and get the meaning of the passage and get the structure of the sentence. Then we can choose the correct word for each gap. Let's go through the passage at first. 26 March is a gap day for the people of Bangladesh. On this day, our gap war began. The heroic sons of our country sacrificed their gap. After going to the passage, we can understand that in the first gap, we should use the word national or great, because according to the rule, if the gap is before a noun, then an adjective word normally should be applicable. Here, national and great both are adjective, so either of them should be used in the gap. And if we use national or great, it will be matched with the noun and the structure. Then the second sentence, on this day our gap war began. Here the gap requires the word regarding our war, and we know that there is liberation war or independence war, so liberation or independence is applicable in the gap. Then in the third sentence, the heroic sons of our country sacrificed their gap. Here we see that the word lives is applicable, because all of us know that our heroes sacrificed their lives. Here the word lives is plural form of life, because there is a plural, that's why the noun should be in the plural number. Now we'll see the rest of the passage and the gap number D and E. Dear learners, you can see the rest of the reproduced passage on the board. Here we can see two gaps D and E. So the whole nation gave the day every year to give respect to the martyrs. In the gap D, we can use celebrates or observes. Here we see the gap is the place of a verb. So we should use the verb according to the right forms of verb, and here we must use the form of verb is S or ES form. That's why the word celebrates, celebrate or observe should be celebrates or observes, because this verb is a finite verb and it is in the form of present indefinite tense, and the subject of this verb is third person singular number. That's why it takes s or es form. Then every year to gap respect to the martyrs. Here we can use pay or show. It is also the place of a verb, so we should use this clue according to the rules of right forms of verb, and that is after to, the verb usually will be in the form of V1 or main form, base form. Dear learners, have you got all these passages, all the gaps? Well, I think you have got all the gaps well according to the rules, according to the meaning, according to the scene passage. Dear learners, that is what I have today. Thank you very much for joining the class.